Hello, my name's Sam McDonald. I'm with Vista Productions. I am a video producer here in Bentonville, Arkansas, coming to you from our happy little studio here in Bentonville. As a producer, my job is to wrangle camera operators, audio technicians, colorists, editors, clients, and get them all on the same page and try and get content made. So a lot of what we do is corporate content. There's also movies and ENG, that's electronic news gathering. Hold on, let me use some magic because my air conditioner just turned on. That's better. All right, so where was I? A producer. That's what I am for corporate content. And it's kind of important to understand that there's different types of video production that exist out there, and I think of them in three big realms. You've got movies, you've got corporate, and then you've got electronic news gathering, or people call it ENG. It's just people on the news. It's the news shooters. So with movies, you've seen that before, even down to short films. It's, you got the director, and there's a producer, and there's actors, and, there's schedules, and, at its most basic level, it's just making a film. For corporate content, there are, documentaries, there's also commercial work, social media content, all kinds of different stuff there. And then you've got the news, which is what you've seen, camera people running around getting news and anchor people talking and all that fun stuff. My world exists pretty exclusively with the corporate content. So I'm really well versed in making training videos and corporate documentaries. And, while it's not the most exciting thing, movie stars aren't calling me and asking me my opinion on how scripts go or anything like that. I do get to stay employed and make a lot of fun content and meet a lot of fun people, so I enjoy it. So if you're considering a career, just know that corporate content's a way to go. Nobody gets into video productions like, I want to be the person that makes training videos, but it can be a lot of fun, especially if you do it, with the right mindset. So knowing those three different areas of the video production world, it's kind of also important to know that there's two types of people that work in this, and they kind of bounce back and forth, but you've got full-time and you've got freelance. Full-time people like me, I'm on staff with a company called Vista Productions, there it is, and I'm here full-time, so I get a salary for what I do, and every day I come in and I do my job, and I know at the end of the week I make X amount of dollars, and it is very consistent. There's also the freelancers. Now, really talented freelancers are people that I hire to, be camera operators or audio technicians or editors. These are freelance people that I can't keep on staff all the time, but I can pay, a pretty fair amount of money to on a daily basis whenever we have lots and lots of projects happening. So you'll hear people kind of be the full-time people and the freelance people in this industry, and it's eventually once you get to the point if you want to follow this as a career, you'll want to make that decision, but it's nothing you really have to worry about right now because everybody kind of starts off as freelance, especially in high school. You're just, unless you can land an internship, that's a lot of how it's going to look for you is going on to freelance to start with, and then hopefully quickly you can do whatever you want to with that. So a tip for getting hired full-time, whenever you're getting into the video production industry, you're always starting off as a freelancer. So that's where the real ticket starts, is that when you're working as a freelancer, so let's say a videographer, or you're working on a project with a company, being extremely professional is the best way, and really hardworking is the best way to have them consider you for full-time later on down the line. And keep it in mind, as you're working through that, all the things you can do to be professional is be on time, be super courteous to everybody, be really nice to all the people that hired you, and be very grateful, and definitely don't complain about anything as long as everything's in fair, nice conditions. Nobody's going to tolerate somebody coming on set for the first time and sort of just griping about stuff. It doesn't really work that way. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're looking to be full-time, start making connections with companies like Vista, or there's a lot of other companies in the area, or wherever area you end up. And get to know how they do things and get to know who their people are. Another really important tip is that if you decide to go to college, while you're in college, right out of the gate, try and get on with a firm somewhere, maybe even on a part-time status, and do whatever they need you to do. Like video production companies always need somebody to wrap cables or carry C-stands or, do some grunt editing type stuff. So if you can get those projects in really early and make some mistakes nice and early, and that way you can get those out of the way, by the time you're graduating or you're a little bit older, you'll be in a really good spot to go on full time somewhere. And so that's something to kind of think about, is make connections really early, and don't put those expectations through the roof that somebody's going to hire you right out of the gate, because it's not likely to happen right out of the gate that somebody's going to offer you like a $45,000 job to come on and be their editor. Could happen, and you can definitely try it, but something to keep in mind. So freelancers are extremely valuable in the video production industry, and we always need freelancers. Whenever projects get really heavy, or you need people with specialized skill sets, you always turn to the freelance pool, at least we always do, to bring in some special skills and assets that you wouldn't have the budget for to keep on staff all the time. You can't pay somebody lots and lots of money to stay on with a salary when they're only going to be working a few days out of the year or even out of the month. Having freelancers that are readily available to us that we like to work with are really important. And one tip I have about freelancers is that I always like to work people who are easy to work with. I like to work with people who are just easy to get along with. Skill sets are important. It's good to have somebody who is really good at what they do, and that's sort of like goes without saying that they have to be able to do that job well. But I will always hire somebody over somebody else if that person is fun to be around, they have a positive attitude, they always show up on time, they're always ready to work, they're not whining. It goes a long way to say that if you're a really nice person and you work really hard, you're much more likely, and this is for every job, you're much more likely to get hired on as a freelancer than if you show up on set and you act like you know everything, and everybody else's opinion probably becomes secondary to yours. You're probably not going to get called back very much, and if you do, it'll be few and far between, and you're probably not going to get paid the rate that you want to be. And a note about rates, every time we do one of these projects, we think up this budget here, and this is kind of the same budget that I use over and over again to start from. And rates in this industry are kind of interesting, because even around here, freelancers are able to make pretty good rates, especially whenever they're doing corporate work like the stuff we do. And we're not even the high-end, top-edge, most expensive company. We just charge really fair stuff and get pretty good stuff in return. But, for a director of photography these days, about $500 a day is going to be a decent rate for that. For audio technicians, $400, kind of depends. There's probably an audio technician out there or two that wouldn't agree with that. An audio, again, director of photography is the person who is basically in charge of what the image looks like, and around here, they're generally the camera operator as well. Your audio technician is the person who plugs in the microphone and runs the knobs and makes sure everything sounds good and lobs people up and things like that. An associate producer, that's somebody who is sort of an assistant producer, kind of keeps the ball rolling and makes sure the clients are happy and getting what they want, and making sure that the lead producer is getting what they need, information gathering, site visits, stuff like that. That person, $350 a day around here is just about right. Maybe a little bit more in some cases. Your average producer, at least from what we can say, it's $500 to $800 a day is what they get paid, and that's what I do. Is I don't make $800 a day every day, but that's a good producer is going to be worth every penny, because they're going to be able to put all the people in the right places and keep the clients happy. So that's just about the rate that they make, and they're generally one of the people. Them and the director of photography are the ones who are going to make a higher rate most of the time, just because that job, while they're all very important, that job is pretty much essential to make sure that everybody gets the thing shot and moves on. Grips, those are the people who run around and push the dollies and plug stuff in and wrangle lights. And I know that in Hollywood standards, grips only do a very specified job, but around here, grips are generally encouraged to do a lot of other stuff. You can usually get about $550 a day as a grip. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Camera operators, $400 to $500 a day. So those are rates for people in the industry who have been doing this for a long time. So let's talk more about the rates that you should try and get in your early stages of your career, because right now you're in high school, get ready to go to college. And once you get to college, of course, we already know that you're going to be jumping in on projects as much as you can so that you can network and meet people and get additional gigs. And that's something to say, is that movies have a tendency to pay a whole lot less to younger people who are just trying to get their foot in the door rather than corporate work, from what we can see. So I'll speak to the corporate world. I know that a lot of people find the appeal of getting onto a movie set, especially here in Northwest Arkansas now that more movies are getting here. But also keep in mind that the corporate side of things, if you can get in with a group there, you're able to maybe make a little extra money faster than you would otherwise. And make some good connections for consistency. So in your world, where you'll probably start off at to try and get in on a video set in a corporate world is going to be sort of like a PA, a production assistant. And production assistants always will at least get minimum wage, whatever that happens to be. But generally, a production assistant is going to make somewhere between $150 to $200 a day. What I will say is that if you are just begging to get on somewhere and you haven't had any luck and you really need to get on to a set, you can offer your services for free. And there's a lot of people, especially in video production, that will tell you, oh yeah, you come on, we'll put you on here and you'll get some really great experience. And that's very true. You'll get good experience, but you can't eat experience. Your experience won't pay your tuition. So keep it in mind that while you can do a couple of those freebies early on in your career just to meet some people and get to know some people, I would strongly recommend not going down that road of just doing a bunch of stuff for free, because if you can't make money doing video production, then it is solely a hobby, which is totally fine. But if you want to make it your career, put yourself in a position to at least make minimum wage whatever you're doing, especially PA work. And then as you get different skill sets and develop those, you can start charging those bigger rates. Now, I'm never going to bring a person on who I've never worked with before, especially if they're younger, because it's hard for someone to trust those skill sets from somebody that there's no credibility to yet, and pay them like $600 to be my director of photography. It just doesn't really work that way. You have to work your way sort of up the ladder to start making some of those bigger rates. And the things that you can be doing in order to show people that you have the skill sets are start producing some of your own pieces. Get to know your camera and get to know the craft, get to know what a 3-point lighting system is, get to know what good audio is. Just start understanding some of those things for yourself personally and personal projects, and then you can start sharing those with more established creative firms in the area, and they'll start giving you more chances. Especially getting in at that PA level is a really great place to start, because if you can get in and be a really cool PA and really help the producer and the director out, get them everything they want and they like you, you're much more likely to get hired back than otherwise. And that was the other important note was kind of with that is always charge a fair rate for your time. You're like I said, you can do a couple freebies here and there, but charging a fair rate is definitely important. I'm going to show you some of the documents that I use on a daily basis that you can start using in your video world right now, especially when you're coming up with projects in high school and things like that. Getting to know some of these documents and understanding how they work and why they're useful is really important. So the first one that I have is what I call the Creative Call Brief Sheet. Now, in the movie world, they have things called call sheets that are not quite like this, but sort of like this. Basically, it's just a place where somebody can go to get all the information they need for that shoot in one place. And I like to combine the creative brief with the production itinerary, just because we're smaller operations, so we don't need to send people 19 different documents. But in the creative brief section, it's right here, and I've just copied in some random verbiage here. This section here will explain what the shoot is. Who are you doing it for? What's the overall scope of this? Is it a documentary piece? Is it a bunch of interviews? What's the purpose? This is a really good place to get everybody, a good 60-second pitch on all the details, or at least a good 60-second pitch on the overview of what your piece is at. And I keep all that stuff right here in this creative brief section. Now, next down is the production itinerary. You're going to have all kinds of different people in here that are going to be important to the shoot. So you've got the client, you've got another client, you've got the producer, let's say you've got director of photography and you've got your technician and your associate producer. Lots of people really like having that contact information right there at their fingertips because it's important for us to be able to get everybody on the same page quickly if something goes wrong. Let's say the producer is late or gets stuck in traffic. Well, and if you guys need to start getting set up, it's good for the DP to be able to contact the client very quickly. So further down in the production itinerary, you've got basically a day that happens and the stuff that happens on that day. So what I'll do is just say this is Wednesday, January 10th. Today the client is James T. Kirk and the producer is Spock, and we'll put his name and number on there. That way, if anybody has any trouble, they can just contact the producer. And then I'll kind of line out all the stuff that people need to know, like what time do you start? When's the crew call and load in? And where does that happen at? And then the other stuff happens all the way down the line. Anytime there's a set move or change of location, you can put that in there as well. Then next down after that are questions for an interview. And if there's multiple people that you're interviewing, you can separate out different sections for each of those. The main point, and there's also additional information where I put a picture of the Millennium Falcon. The main point is have a document for every project that you do that sort of spells out the general gist of the project and then lays it out in detail about how you're going to execute it. Because even if it's just you and your friends shooting a video, it's a whole lot easier if everybody's on the same page about, okay, here's where we're going to be at when we show up, here's who needs to bring what, this person's going to be in charge of this stuff, here's the person who's bringing food. Having all that stuff in the same document for all your friends or, sometimes your clients to be able to see is really helpful to keep everybody on the same page. Which brings me to my next document that I always want to get together before I start a shoot, and that is a script. Scripts are, for some reason, lots of people just don't write scripts, and I'm starting to really wonder why people don't do that, because in my line of work, it is massively helpful to have a script where everybody goes to, and even if it's just Walmart logo animates in and the score comes up and there's a voiceover and the person says yada yada and the music goes out. If I have that script, it's an instant way for me to get my client on the same page and my cohorts and my production crew on the same page about what is the piece about, what's going to be said. And a lot of people can answer a lot of questions from just seeing a good, well-written script and looking at that creative brief at the same time. There's not a lot of guesswork after that about how you're going to execute things. So having a really good script in place is a really fantastic idea, and you should definitely start writing scripts just to get the hang of it. In this world, I'm sure you've seen this is a video side and an audio side. So as you walk down and you put stuff in, like on the video, you're going to say like giant, beanstalk shoots up from the ground. And then over here on the audio side, you're going to say, we hear the beanstalk. And so this whole thing runs in real time so that whatever happens on the left-hand side correlates with the ones on the right-hand side. So there's lots of different examples of script writing. There's actually another form of this. There's like the screenplay script, which is something that I don't use very often, but I know a lot of people do. Scripts are very helpful, and if you plan on getting into video production in the long term, you definitely want to start writing scripts and getting to know how people write them and what they're used for. Very cool stuff. Sort of my last tip that I'll go through is there's two things that I use all the time that I use to share documents and keep track of things. The first is Google Drive. And so within Google Drive, I will always have a folder on Google Drive that's automatically synced right there to my desktop or to my laptop or to my phone that has a given project's files right inside of them. So if you look inside, any one of these are all the projects that we're currently working on. If you go into here, you can see planning, and inside of this, you see the Creative Crawl brief sheet. It's right there. Inside of scripts and outlines, there's a script, AV format, screenplay format. So what I'll do is that for every project we do, I'll come up here and I've got a pre-made file structure. It just says copy me all the way through. And it has all these handy little places in here where I can keep all my content. So inside here, I've got scripts and from the client and storyboards. I've got proxy footage that goes in here. I've got project files that belong in there, graphics, all the different stuff I need for graphics, audio, all right here, and outputs, all right there. So main point is that if you can come up with a file structure system that you like, you can just put it on Google Drive and duplicate it every single time you have a new project pop up, and then you've got all your stuff organized in the same spot. So something to keep in mind is Google Drive syncing to the cloud is very handy. And on that same note, I do the exact same thing with my active project files over on, or my client project files over on Adobe Cloud. So Adobe, whenever you create an account, has automatically a cloud system that it uses. So what I'll use is I'll do kind of the same thing over here. I'll keep budgets and project overviews and stuff like that, sort of the stuff that I use in order to work with clients on. I'll keep those separate from all the creative stuff over on the Google Drive side. But the same thing applies over here. Every single time I come up with a new project, I've got inside here a budget template, a PO form, and a proposal that basically lines out what the project's going to go for. Main point is, every single time I start a new project, all I have to do is just copy this, and I've got a bunch of files right there ready for me to go on the project. That way I'm not having to do the same work over and over and over again. So just get to know the cloud, get your files up there, get your proxy footage up there, and it'll make life a whole lot more simple for you. Hopefully this was not too sporadic, and enjoy the rest of the festival, have fun, and yeah, keep it classy.